When I was first learning to drive, I had a number of near-death experiences. One of them that I remember was sitting at a red light waiting to turn left, me in the driver's seat, my, I'm sure, petrified mother sitting in the passenger seat, a bunch of oncoming traffic waiting for that same red light. Now, if you know anything about driving, you essentially wait until that light turns green, the oncoming traffic goes, you nudge into the intersection, and then hang a left when it's clear, right? Well, I didn't do that. When the light turned green, I just went. Call it being new. I don't remember exactly why this car did not cream me, of which my poor mother probably would have taken most of the blow. I just remember screaming unknown languages. I'm doing that little stutter stop go thing, I'm like, what do I do? All I remember is we started driving, and I know I never made that mistake again. Now, if you ask most IT administrators, how do I learn to troubleshoot? They're going to flip right back around and say, it's just experience. And while there is an element of truth to that, I would say, yes, it's information plus experience that makes you a ninja level troubleshooter. I knew what I was supposed to do here. I had the information, but I lacked the experience. But imagine if I didn't have the information. Imagine if the light turned green, I turned left, people are screaming, cars are screeching on their brakes, and I'm like, what's going on? What's the deal? Why is everybody screaming at me? It's because I didn't have the information that I was supposed to wait before I turned left. In the same sense, that's my goal for this nugget, and I would say for the series as a whole, is to give you the mindset of troubleshooting, to give you enough of my experience that I've gained over the years, along with a lot of best practices, that you can come out of this series not only ready for that certification exam, but you'll at least have a whole leg up on people starting from ground zero in the troubleshooting realm. Now, troubleshooting can mean different things to different people, so let's start off by defining it. Troubleshooting is responding to a problem report, diagnosing the cause of the problem, and resolving the problem. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, that was laborious. Why didn't we just say troubleshooting is the process of fixing broken stuff? That's true, but I already want to begin renewing your mind. It's like the Matrix, right? Renew your mind to a methodical method of troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is what really can differentiate the average technician from a master or expert level technician. And I've been in both shoes. But let me give you an example of something that recently happened to me. I'm sitting at my desk, sitting in my little swivel chair, right? And I'm typing on my computer, having a great day. This guy, one of the technicians that works for me, comes up, screams, "The internet's down." And then by the time I swivel my chair around, he's gone. I'm like, who was that? What do you mean the internet's down? Now, okay, hold the phone. The internet's down? That's like world apocalypse kind of talk, right? I mean, if the internet was truly down. Okay, so responding to the problem report, how are you going to respond? First off, not emotionally. Don't panic. Don't let emotion get involved because it clouds the whole thing. Start asking questions. What do you mean the internet's down? Is the world ending? Or is it our company that's offline? Or, what's the first thing that I do? I pull up my computer and open a command prompt and ping an internet address that I see as reliable. Okay, responses are coming back. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, that tells me the internet's let's first off clarify, the internet connection is up, right? But somebody or some group of bodies in our organization must not be up. So now I start going into investigation and diagnosing what is causing this. Is it, and this is where we're going to go in this series, is how do you diagnose this? What questions do you ask? And then, of course, bringing resolution to the issue. So let me give you Jeremy's rule number 1 of troubleshooting. It's not on any certification exam. Keep emotion out of troubleshooting. Now, I'm not talking about empathy. I'm not talking about somebody coming up there like, I lost all my documents. You're like, wow, did you save them? You should have saved them. I mean, don't be a jerk. I mean, empathize. Be like, oh my goodness, that's so terrible. Let's see what we can do. But don't panic. I mean, two people panicking about losing documents doesn't help anybody out, even if you feel that gut level like, oh wow, I don't know anything about their documents. How are we going to resolve that? Realize that troubleshooting is a little like Candyland. And I know you're looking, you're like, what? I have 5 young children. I can explain this well. You put your little icon sitting here on square number 1 and you draw from this card pile, right? You flip it over. It either will have a color, maybe a couple colors on it, which dictates how many hops you go on this little board and you go along the way. Well, sitting in that pile is these I'll say symbol cards. You'll have, for instance, the candy cane. You'll have the gingerbread. You'll have the snowflake, right? And so at any time, you might pull from that card pile the snowflake, and automatically your icon moves all the way to the end. Sometimes troubleshooting's like that. You just shoot from the hip, you nail it, you're like, man, that was awesome, and you get to the Candyland castle, right? But there's times where you're like, okay, I'm making progress, and all of a sudden you draw that gumdrop. You're like somewhere here, and you're like, totally the wrong path. You're all the way back to square, 5 or something, and you're like, okay, now I've got to start over. The key to success, I'm not talking in Candyland because I don't have success. My kids beat me all the time. The key to success in troubleshooting is to follow a method. Now, I know many of you have been looking at this list below, thinking, okay, these are the methods, right? No, actually, these aren't a method. We'll talk about methods in an upcoming nugget. Actually, I'll talk about one in this nugget. These are basic elements of human thought. And the one I'm going to talk about in this nugget is actually what most IT people use, which completely defies human thought. So before I get there, let me talk about the basic elements in a non-IT example. Let's just say a car. This kind of seems to be my car nugget where these examples are coming in. You get into your car. You turn the key. Nothing happens. There's your problem, right? Define the problem. My car does not start. Okay. Now we're going to get information. Now we do this naturally. We're not sitting there in our car going, okay, what was that 6-step element process? No, we're just doing this naturally based on our knowledge of cars. And I don't want to go past that and just gloss over it. Let me say it again. Based on our knowledge of cars. We're assuming that we know cars use gas, right? We assume that cars have batteries and have alternators and things like that. Now, if you don't know any of that, you turn the key and you're done. You're just like a typical user. Do you see the comparison I'm having here? A typical user calls and they're like, it's not working. And you go, what's not working? And they're going, I don't know. They don't even know how to describe it to you because they don't know the elements of a network environment or sometimes even basic computing environment. Okay, so that's the gap. So let's just say we know basics of cars. We're going to say, okay, am I out of gas? Well, no, it can't be a gas thing because I don't even see lights. And I know gas doesn't equal lights. Battery equals lights. Okay, so I'm already analyzing and eliminating just natural human process. Okay, it must not be gas, at least not yet. There's something with the battery. Okay, pop the hood, get more information. Is the cables connected to the battery? Can I stick my tongue to the, obviously not a car guy talking here. So I'm analyzing and eliminating all these options, formulating my hypothesis. Okay, I live in Arizona. It gets to 120 some degrees in the summer. Batteries cook on a normal basis. I betcha I've got a dead battery. So how do I test that solution? I either, jump start the car, I get a tow truck to come and bring a new, you know where I'm going with this, right? And hopefully that solves the problem. If not, then we go back and get more information or, call the mechanic or whatever the case may be, right? Okay. That is the basic elements of human thought that most people go through when they're troubleshooting. Now, what's different about IT people? Well, IT people are jaded, often because of the environment that we live in, right? Somebody comes up, I'll go back to my little desk I was drawing before. Someone comes up and says, the internet's down. We don't even, I mean, we may do basic forms of this, but we're like, oh, the internet's down, so we don't even stop to interpret oftentimes what they're saying. They may be saying, I can't open my Excel document from Office 365. They may be saying, my email seems to be funny when it opens. They may, I mean, we don't even stop there. We're like, okay, I'm going straight to test the solution. I know that we've got this weird router that we've got to reboot it every now and then. So you run into the IT room, pull the plug on a router. Come on, tell me you haven't done this before. Plug it back in, and you're like, okay, did that resolve the issue? Now 5 more people are like, the internet's down. You're like, what? And this guy's like, I don't, hi. I'm Steve. It's like he doesn't even know what he's talking about. But we reacted. We tested our solution. Did it solve the problem? We don't even fully grasp the problem. This is actually, believe it or not, Cisco calls this. This is Cisco's term. A shoot from the hip approach. Now, I'm not telling you don't shoot from the hip. Now, obviously, don't do what I just said right here. Pull the plug on your main corporate router because some guy came up named Steve and said the internet's down. But a lot of times we do something very similar. We assume that we know what the person's talking about, which sometimes we do, because it's the same person. They reported this before. You've heard this from 5 other people. Oh, it's a common solution. And we get so many issues. We're just like, got our little rifles here, shooting. Well, obviously you don't use rifles from the hip. You use, I can't even think of it. You know what I'm talking about, right? So a lot of that, I'm not saying don't do this. And this is a very valid method. Here's the problem. The average troubleshooter does not know when to convert from shooting from the hip into a more methodical approach. And I'm going to talk about all the approaches in the next nugget. But they don't know when to convert from shooting from the hip to a more methodical approach. The system goes something like this. Someone comes up and says, the internet's down, or let me go with another issue. I can't get to the server, right? They start pinging. They're like, no, I can't get to the server either. Okay, well, what do? They go on Google. They're like, can't get to server. Okay, well, link number 1 says this. Okay, let me try this. And they go through the 3 steps, and then they get bored of reading, and they're like, I don't think that's it. And so they hit the back button, go 5 more pages in Google. They're like, ooh, that one looks like kind of my problem. Now, I know I'm using a very simple example of I can't get to the server, which probably wouldn't lead somebody in this direction, but you know what I'm talking about, right? You've been there. I've been there, where you're just going through endless Google searches, and 3 hours later, you're still at the Google search, and when you finally get on with tech support because you've given up, your day's ruined, and you call tech support, what do? They go, okay, have you rebooted the computer? And what do? Of course I've rebooted the computer. Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I mean, you flip out at this person because the person, and I'm talking, tech support guy that is, trying to help you over the phone. The person has no context of what you've been doing. You've done no documentation on what you've been doing. Whoo, I feel it, buddy. That's what I'm talking about. That's a poor troubleshooting approach. You stay shooting from the hip for 3 straight hours, that at the end of 3 hours you don't even know what you've done, what you've tried. And so when you get to troubleshooting methodically, and it's almost like he's your counselor, right? You're calling tech support, they're like, hi, my name is Jeremy. I just shot from the hip for 3 hours. I'm sorry. Please help me. And they're like, okay. Step one is admit that you shot. You know, it's like one of those kind of things where they're like, okay, let me walk you through that, and that's really all they do. And you know what usually happens? You know what usually happens? They get like 3 steps into methodical troubleshooting. They're like, have you checked the services to see if they're all started? And all of a sudden, it's like, bing! It rings a bell in your head, and you're like, oh my goodness, I forgot about the wireless switch on the laptop. I'm just saying, you know, the things that I've gone through in the past where I'm like, unbelievable, and I hang up on that IT troubleshooting guy because I'm like, I don't need you anymore. I flip the switch on the laptop, and then it's not it, and I'm like, oh, and I've got to call back again. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, right? We're all confessing here in our little troubleshooting shoot from the hip support group. That's what we have to do. This is my rule, and this is what I follow religiously. Shoot from the hip, 10 minutes. I always give myself 10 minutes. As soon as I start into an issue, I will immediately glance at the clock. I'm looking at it right now because it's off the screen. You guys can't see it. It is 1:37 p.m. As soon as that report comes in, I go, I've got until 1:47 p.m. and I stick to that. As soon as I hit 1:47, if I haven't figured it out, I stop shooting from the hip. I get out a document and I start going, okay, what's the problem? And it is painful. I'm not saying you're going to get used to it, but it is painful every time because you're like, I just want to keep trying things, but it's almost like you have to bite your hand until it hurts and say, no, I'm going to start writing down every single thing that I'm doing and go piece by piece until I solve this issue. Whew, I feel like I need to breathe into a paper bag. Let me back down and wrap up this nugget by going through the basic elements of troubleshooting, because they are not mine. They are from Cisco, and they are well-known troubleshooting processes. Number one, define your problem. What is that? Defining your problem is truly scoping in exactly what the issue is. I know you've been here before where you're solving an issue and you're like, woohoo, I've got it. And you get back to the user and they're like, oh, that's good, but that's actually not my problem. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, of course. So I just wanted to update you that I solved one element, but now I'm going to, what was your problem again? So I will say, you know who does this well? Microsoft. You ever open a case with Microsoft when you pay $350 to have them come support you? You know what they do? They did for me. For 30 minutes, I sat there defining my problem to them. I said, okay, here is the issue that I'm having. And essentially what they're trying to do is say, okay, you paid $350. We know that if we get into this and start uncovering other things that aren't related, then, we're going to charge you more, essentially, is what they're saying. They're saying, okay, we will solve exactly what you define right now. So I have to clearly say, here's what my problem is. Here's what I define as success. If you can accomplish this, I will consider this problem successful and you can close the case. That is literally what they do. You kind of got to take a soft approach to that without being, I almost said without being jerks. Microsoft is not a jerk. They're just obviously legally responsible for solving whatever you've defined. You've got to do that with your user. Gather the information. You can gather it, number one, from the user reporting the problem. If they say the internet's down, start asking probing questions. Start doing analysis to really confirm, okay, is the internet, is there a worldwide apocalypse? What's the scoop? Testing, internal, external, all those kind of things. All your methods of gathering information. Then, this is the biggest thing that separates shooting from the hip from a methodical, analyze and eliminate. So you start saying, okay, I've got these 8 possibilities of what this issue could be. I know it's not this because XYZ. And this one is definitely not. This one I would say is far reaching. So I'm guessing these 3 are probably the most likely cause. So now you start formulating your hypothesis. You say, and of those three, I bet you this one is it. I'm going to go down that road, test my solution, and either solve the problem or come back to the formulate hypothesis and say, okay, that actually was not it. Let me go right here. And you may end up, essentially, go back to my car, you may reach the end of your knowledge of cars. Right? You may say, okay, I've changed the battery, I've changed this. Instead, that relates to Cisco. You may exhaust your knowledge of HSRP or VLANs or whatever issue you're troubleshooting and have to reach out to a higher level engineer for help. But what will save them a lot of times, what will help them gain respect for you and will help your problem solve faster, is when you come to them with this document and you say, okay, this is what I define as my problem. I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this, did this one. It'll save you all the time of going through all of the same things that you did with them again, because they're going to walk through methodically your situation, same kind of situation, until it brings the problem to resolution. Man, I feel like there's so much more I could say. I'm excited that I have a series ahead of me to talk to you about troubleshooting, not only defining all the different methods that you can use, but giving you, just preparing you for success. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you go through this and just feel so much more confident at the end of this. So for now, you have seen and now understand troubleshooting at its basics. What is the basic definition? I've got to troubleshoot my pen. I don't know why it's doing this. And then you've seen a structured troubleshooting approach, the basic elements of human thought that you can piece together to create that structure. Coming up, I'm going to go through all the methods, but for now, I hope this has been informative for you and I'd like to thank you for viewing.